showtime. So, Senator Berman, Mayor Reich, Mayor Little, Peter Mäkilä, ladies and gentlemen. Today is Veterans Day, and we thank veterans everywhere for their service. My name is Chris Sandell, and I am president of the Finnish American Chamber of Commerce, Florida chapter, which was founded 15 years ago. And one of the responsible guys sitting over there, Peter Mäkilä. Today we are honored to have a distinguished guest speaker, Ms. Pia Kauma, a member of the Finnish Parliament for the National Coalition Party, which is the Finnish version of a Republican Party, or Conservative Party, rather. And Ms. Kauma has a list of achievements which is impressive, to say the least. But in order not to take too much time, I'm going to make it very short. Ms. Kauma is married with 4 children, and she's a graduate of the Helsinki School of Business with an MBA degree. She can communicate in 8 languages.
That's amazing.
She first became a member of Parliament in 2011, and is also a member of the important Foreign Affairs Committee. Since 2011, Ms. Kauma has been part of the Finnish delegation to the OSCE, which stands for Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. The OSCE comprises 57 member states in Europe, North America, and Asia. This includes the United States and Canada. Since 2023, she is president of the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly, which has on the agenda, among other things, election observation and counter-terrorist activities. In this capacity, Ms. Kauma was in Washington, D.C. last week to monitor the U.S. presidential election. Please join me in welcoming Pia Kauma.
I wonder if you can hear my voice. I hope so. So, thank you for welcoming here. My name is Pia Kauma, and like Christel said, I'm a member of Finnish Parliament. I have been member since 2011, and I have been active in politics since 2004. So I've been active for quite a long time already. But the National Coalition Party, in order to be exact, it's not exactly a conservative party, but it's a center-right party. That's how we define it. But of course, it being a large political party, it has people who have more conservative and more liberal leanings. So, but it's a very wide party, and at the moment we are also a Prime Minister's party in Finland. We hold 48 seats out of 200 in Finland. And like you all know, in Finland we are used to having coalition governments. And we are at the moment together in the government with the Finnish party, the Swedish party, as well as the Christian Democrats. And so far the cooperation has been going well. And we had our last elections in 2023, so far so good. We are making reforms in Finland because we are having quite high unemployment rates at the moment, and also the economy is not growing fast enough. So in order to keep the welfare economy and welfare society alive, we need to make some reforms in Finland. And one of them has been the social and health reform, so that we can secure that all the elderly people and others will get the services that they need. But many of us parliamentarians also belong to international organizations within the parliament, and my task has been to be part of our delegation to OSCE, and that is the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Finland, which was established during President Kekkonen's time in order to bring West and East together, to have a forum together where they could discuss basically the issues that are very difficult to discuss together. And we all knew that these two sides usually had differing opinions about them. And Finland is going to be the chairing country of the OSCE next year. So bearing in mind that we have an ongoing war in Europe, there are quite high expectations on Finland, as you can imagine. But one of the things that we do in this organization is that we do election observation. I personally have been to 15 different countries out of the 57 participating states to observe election observation missions. And just prior coming to the United States, I was in South Caucasus in Georgia, heading an election observation mission, and I came here. And I led the mission. We had approximately 150 parliamentarians from more than 40 different countries in Europe and Asia to observe the mission. And we were deployed in 7 different states during 1 week's time. And in addition to what we call these short-term observers, we work together with the long-term observers, which had been here for about a month already, and they had been touring in every state that you have, all the 50 states. And then we gathered together and collected our opinions and observations. And our opinion and observation concluded that this was a competitive general election, but it was conducted, as you all know, in a very polarized atmosphere, where there was a lot of false information around, and for which it was quite difficult for the voters at times to really gather which is correct information and which is not. And also, foreign influence cannot be excluded, especially from Russia and China. And also very harsh language was utilized, as you know, especially from one candidate in the presidential race. And I must say that for me as a Finn, it was always surprising to see the Super PAC commercials in the television, where you actually can tell whatever comes to your mind about the contestant. So this is something that we are not used to in Europe. And of course, we made our remarks in our final report also when it comes to election observations. And since there are quite a lot of ladies here around, I would like to raise the question why there are not more women in politics than they are at the moment. If you take the number, 2,700 candidates for the Congress, there were less than 10% females. Can you imagine? Less than 10%.
I'm the second elected woman as mayor in 100 years.
Yes, and that applies especially to the House of Representatives. The situation in the Senate is a little bit better, but there is really no competition as far as gender is concerned. And of course, this is something that we have been paying attention to already a number of years, but I think the situation has gone only worse.
Well, the Florida Senate has improved. We're 33% now.
That's good. So you need to show example to all the other states. But
we have 3 elected officials with us, 100% are women.
yes. So that leads me to the next issue, and that is, of course, the financing, which has gone up every time there is an election. For me personally, this was the 6th time I'm observing elections in the United States. And the last time in presidentials, the financing got up to $15 billion. And now we are exceeding even that. So you can imagine that the next day the election is over, the new candidates are already raising money for the next election to come. So that is really concerning, because people who cannot raise enough money, they have no chances of getting elected. And also one new issue that came up in these elections was the election security towards election officers. We were really concerned about what kind of violence activities there could be at the polling stations itself, because some of them had been already faced hostilities. But luckily enough, there was really nothing that really showed up. There were some threatening situations, a bomb threat in Georgia, which turned out to be a false alarm. But still, other than that, we were quite relieved that the election day turned out to be quite a calm one. But of course, we were quite afraid that had the outcome of the presidential race be otherwise, there might be people on the streets and the security situation might look completely different than it's now looking. Because we already knew by the statements made by the Democrats that they would accept the transfer of regime in a calm and peaceful manner. So, but these are really the concerning issues that we wanted to raise. The final report of our findings will be made in spring, because we will have to find out what kind of legal issues there will be and how they will be handled. And it is only after that we will hand out the final report. So that about that, the elections. What is concerning us in Europe and in Finland is, of course, Russia's aggression towards Ukraine. And also what is to come after these elections in the United States. Is the US Congress and the President going to continue with the military support and other support for Ukraine? Because as I was talking to some of my colleagues in Congress, many of them told me that, well, actually, my voters are asking me what would be the reason for the Americans to really finance the war in Ukraine. Why would we support Ukrainians? So this is, in practice, the question that they are being asked on the field when they see their voters. So I can imagine that it is becoming more and more difficult also to get that kind of bills through in the Congress. And that is really concerning for us in Europe, also bearing in mind what is happening in the European politics. Maybe you have also seen that there are some problems in Germany. There is no longer a government in place, and they are going to hold new elections in a couple of months. And also, the French are not giving much support to Ukraine. There is a lot of talk from President Macron's side, but very much essence or military support to Ukraine in practice. And of course, Hungary's President Orban, Prime Minister Orban is a character on his own. So what is going to happen in the future is really, it's hard to tell what is going to happen. And of course, in Finland, we are quite concerned about that. And having 1,340 kilometers common border with Russia is, of course, one factor that we have to take into account. And that is, of course, the main reason why Finland wanted to become a member of NATO last year. That was completely out of the question for especially our left-wing parties in the past. But as soon as Russia attacked Ukraine, that situation changed. And at the moment in the Finnish parliament, there are all political parties who now think that it was really a favorable, good thing for Finland to finally become member of NATO. And in addition to that, the foreign minister of Finland signed a defense cooperation agreement in Washington with Mr. Blinken, so that there would be additional help also from the US side in case there would be an actual threat towards Finland from our eastern neighbor. So in a way, we have two security shields at the moment, and we are happy that we have that, especially before the elections took place in the US, because you never know what is going to happen now. So one of the issues I also wanted to raise is the business opportunities that this defense cooperation might raise between Finland and the US. After my election observation mission, I had an opportunity to travel to Dallas and to visit Lockheed Martin, which is, as you know, a very big defense corporation employing more than 122,000 people altogether. And they are an organization which is producing, or assembling rather, our new fighters. Finland has ordered 64 units of F-35s from Lockheed Martin. And this is now also one aspect of our security, which is very important, because our current fleet is becoming old and we need to replace them as soon as possible. And it was really interesting to visit the premises and see how our new fleet is being assembled there and is being delivered on time. So, but I really hope that with this development that is taking place between US and Finland, we are going to have even more opportunities for the Finnish industry, because many of the technologies and innovations that you use in defense have a so-called dual use, so that you can also apply that technology in commercial aspects. And I am hoping that this will bring opportunities to us. And there is one thing also about the defense I wanted to bring up, and that is the icebreakers. Because this is some technology that we have in Finland, and it is supposed to be the best in the world. And we will be supplying those to both Canada and to US. But there are some aspects that have to be taken into consideration, and one of them is that this America first, and the thing that all these kind of equipment should be manufactured also on the American continent. And we are now trying to find solutions how we could still enter into agreement between the two states that we could supply those. And it seems to be that last week there was a so-called ICE Pact signed, which might have some solutions to offer for this. But there are still some issues to be negotiated so that it really becomes reality. Because I think that since Finland has the top technology to do that, it would also be in America's interest to have the best possible technology in use, so that you are in safe hands in the future, so to speak. I wanted to also remind you about the Veterans Day today, since we are now talking about defense industry and security issues in general, because it is highly necessary to thank all the veterans of war, both here in the US and in Finland, because without people who sacrificed their lives and their health and their families, we wouldn't be here talking. And we Finns know that better than anybody in the world. So it is always good to remind us what kind of sacrifices are needed. But in order not to bore you too much with this defense talk and military talk, I would now like to open the floor for questions if you have something.
I just wanted to touch base regarding Ukraine and what might happen. And in the papers or in the news lately, there's been some suggestions that Putin would be able to keep the areas in Ukraine that he has conquered at this point. And that would be a tremendous victory for him. And to me, that should never happen, because once you start to walk that trail, who is next?
Exactly.
So he needs to be defeated. And for that, I think the US is necessary. The new US support is really necessary to help Ukraine defeat Putin?
Yes, maybe you have noticed that the president-elect Donald Trump has expressed in several occasions that he will be able to finish the war in 24 hours.
Yeah.
Yes, so I wonder if it means that he will withdraw all the help, all the military assistance from Ukraine. Is that the way to do it, or is there some other way? Because Russia needs to be defeated. If it's not defeated militarily, it will keep doing similar attacks to other countries after Ukraine. So that's why I entirely agree in what you are saying, Christer. We cannot give up those lands and regions to Putin. We have to keep on helping Ukraine fight Putin's regime.
Which in this attitude that we have now is a dream, because they've been very out. I mean, a country has invaded another country. And the fact that there are people in the government and here that don't understand how important it is to defend another sovereign nation from being invaded, no matter who they are,
Yes.
is important. But what we hear is, well, we shouldn't give money to the Ukraine because we have homeless people here. We should spend,
Yes.
It's all America now. My question to you was, you mentioned that your economy is slow. One of the biggest problems that I have, that we have here, I think in the United States, is affordable housing and homelessness.
Yes.
Is that something that you're experiencing as well?
Yes, that is really quite a challenge, because you need employees to the service sector and construction and IT and so forth, but those people need to have a roof above their heads. And if it's too expensive, you don't have the employees. You cannot get them. So one way or another, you will have to resolve that problem. And we do have that at the moment, yes. And the problem also has been that the interest level in Europe has been quite high. So that hasn't really encouraged any kind of investment also in the housing sector.
Back to Ukraine for a moment. How much money has Finland given Ukraine, and what other concrete things has Finland done to help Ukraine in the war effort?
Well, we are one of the biggest donors of military and other type of equipment to Ukraine. In real terms and also in proportional terms, it is something between 2 and 3 billion, but I don't recall the exact number. But when it comes to the donors or the assistance that Ukraine is getting, of course, the US is by far the biggest. There is no comparison. Thereafter comes Germany, and then the UK and so forth. But the others are so much smaller that it is only a fraction of the entity. So
France is holding back. Is Finland given more than France?
In proportional and in absolute terms, yes. Yes.
I have two comments, actually. One is, I don't think anyone disputes that this is horrible what Russia did and they shouldn't get away with it. But I think that we have to face reality that Trump's going to force some sort of settlement, if he can. And I think that there's also almost all the commentaries coming after the election are that there's going to be a precarious relationship between the United States and NATO going forward.
Yes.
And I think that there's no question that there's going to be pressure on all of the countries in NATO to give much more financial support to their own defense, because they can't rely on the USA.
Yes.
And you think that the countries there are going to be able to meet that challenge, particularly when you've got autocratic governments looking for their own interests. Hungary is a perfect example, looking to at their own financial interests as opposed to the common defense issue, because this could be very serious in the long run. I'd like your opinion.
I think they will have to. And I must say that if there are some things with which I agree with Donald Trump, this is the one. Because I think that the European countries should not rely just on the US for the defense. We need to take responsibility in our own hands as well. And there are more and more countries who contribute to the defense industry by more than 2% of their GDP at the moment. The number is growing all the time, but it's not high enough. And I think we need to invest more. And now that we are going to have a new European Commission starting in November, that is quite high in the agenda. There is going to be a commissioner who is in charge of defense industry as a standalone issue. So we are going to have to ramp up our industry and coordinate between different countries who does what, because this is what we are facing now. Of course, if I think our young generation, I would much rather invest in other things, in medical equipment and pharmaceuticals, or all that kind of thing. But this is the situation we are facing right now. We have to ramp up the defense industry.
So, what is Finland doing about China right now? Just away from Ukraine for a while, but China is probably a bigger threat than Ukraine or Russia is in the long run. So, what's the solution there?
Quite easy questions you have there. Yes. So actually, we have a new president, as you know, Alexander Stubb, who was elected in February, and he has started his new presidency in a very active, proactive manner, and he just recently visited China. And that is to say that Finland is a small country. We only have 5.5 million people. So we have to get along with all the countries in the world because nobody cares what we think. We have to be able to communicate, have a dialogue with everybody. So I guess our president's visit to China was to really to touch base what China thinks about Europe's future and what is going to happen between the competition between China and the US and so forth. Because one thing that we shouldn't be heading at is trade competition between different continents, because then the ones who will suffer the most are the ordinary people who will have to pay even more for their everyday living and the consumables that they have. So having good relations is a key to everything for a small country like us.
Very difficult to be a friend with everybody.
It is.
So I hope a friend of yours.
Yes, but this doesn't mean that you have to 100% agree with all the people in the world, but you have to listen to them so that you understand where they are coming from, why they think the way they do. I think this is the basic concept also for all business negotiations, but also for finding a peace, restoring a peace, understanding how they think and why they think the way they do. Yes.
Not many people know this room, but a lot of the recovery efforts in Afghanistan and in the Ukraine have been driven by veterans, retired or past veterans and myself who have been privatized to go over and help with those efforts. Over a decade ago, as you can imagine, the United States isn't really keen on full citizenship. So a lot of Finnish Americans here in the States have a lot of support for full citizenship. I caught that at the end myself, for me and my son. My parents moved over, my father moved over here when he was 5 to escape that. But now what we're seeing, like in Afghanistan and Ukraine, are Finnish American veterans willing to go, just like the Israelis are being called back to Israel. And the way the world is working, I'm wondering if there are any more discussions being had about opening the border back up to Finnish American veterans for dual citizenship on the side of things, like aiding that, into recovery, additional military forces.
I must say that I don't know an answer to that, but maybe our general consul would be able to respond. Maybe you have had that discussion.
It's the expatriate parliament is working on dual citizenship. And, sorry, I'm eating that. It's not moving anywhere at this stage. 2003, 2008, we had it open. That was, if you had the rights to that with your grandparents and so forth. But it's one of the initiatives that I have already maybe 10 years ago into the expatriate. But you can be in contact with me and we'll see what happens. Thank you.
Yes. There has been a discussion also in the Finnish parliament about the dual citizenship, but most of the time it has been in connection with Russian-Finnish citizenship, because of course that is something that might cause problems at some points because of the situation where we are living in, and Russian government might expect certain kind of favors from their citizens wherever they are living. So that is the only thing we've been discussing at this point. But other than that, sorry. Yes. Yes.
Can you expound a little bit about immigration in Finland? I mean, we know it's one of the top issues here in the United States, so I'm curious to see what your country is doing on that issue.
Oh, that is a really interesting question, and I think I could give a lecture of 2 hours, but you would be asleep at that point. So it is a really hot potato in Finland, and we need immigration. Only, of course, already because of the fact that our population is shrinking. The number of babies born last year was 44,000, whereas in the past it used to be 60,000. And all this will mean in the future, let's say in 2060s, that there will be 300,000 less employers and workers in place to pay for the pensions. So we need more babies, both from the Finnish people and why not the Finnish-American families too, but also coming from outside immigrants. And last year, of course, these figures may give you a picture that we are a very small country, but we had a record high number last year because the net immigration was 58,000. So it's not much, but for Finland it is a record high number, and it was largely explained by the Ukrainians. But it has been growing during the recent years, and most of the people are accepting that. But of course, looking west from Finland, looking to Sweden, they have had a very liberal immigration policy for decades. And now they also see the downside of that immigration policy, because there are some suburban areas in the big cities like Stockholm where the police forces don't even want to go because it's too dangerous. And there are more and more people carrying guns on the streets, like here in the States. So many Finns have been scared off because of that they don't want to have more immigration. So dealing with the issue that we don't have enough Finnish people born in Finland and not enough employment, and having this security issue, we have to find some kind of balance here so that people can come safely to Finland and feel welcome in Finland. So, but at the same time, so that we are not too light on when it comes to criminality and so forth. But I must say also that now that this new European Commission is going to start its work in December, in addition to the defense industry and such things, the immigration policy is also high on their agenda. And there's actually the Finnish commissioner, Henna Virkkunen, who is in charge of that. So she will be having a very heavy briefcase to be carried, and so to speak, and we will find solutions to that. And of course, especially the Mediterranean countries like Italy and Greece and Spain are the ones who complained the most that Europe is not taking enough responsibility. And especially Italy has taken some actions already in such a way that they have been building some centers for asylum seekers in Albania, so that instead of coming to the Italian soil, they would be going to Albania and wait for their applications to be handled, and they would be waiting in Albania. But now there seems to be a problem with humanitarian issues. There is a Supreme Court in Italy who has said that this might not meet the expectations of human rights and so forth. So we are really waiting for the outcome of that situation, if that can be multiplied in other countries, or what shall we do?
Do you welcome Americans?
Absolutely, absolutely. And usually the reason why the Americans come to Finland is because of love.
No.
To a lady or a gentleman, but of course to a country, of course. So, yes.
Northern Lights.
Yes.
And what?
Yes, please.
Now that North Korea is sending troops to Ukraine, against Ukraine, and that opened the door for NATO and troops to Ukraine.
That's a good question, but I don't think it will be in the near future that NATO will be sending troops. They have been training the Ukrainian military, but not fighting. So in a way, we already have that, but we don't want to cross the threshold, so to speak, to really carry guns and do the actual war things in Ukraine. But from what I heard from Ukrainians, the Russians are not very happy with the troops coming from Northern Korea, because they cannot speak any languages. And how can you lead an army if they don't understand what you're saying? So basically, Putin is using those men and young boys just as to be killed in the forefront.
Meat grinder.
So that is his policy, unfortunately. Yes.
I got two topics for you. So number one is talk about war. Does Finland have nuclear weapons on its ground right now? And after you think about that for a while, if they would ask you to vote, would you approve nuclear weapons on Finland's soil? And my second part of the question is, there's been rumors in the United States that European community is not going to last. You have so many issues, so many countries, so many problems. In your opinion, in a decade from now, is it possible that the European community would dismantle? And if that would become a vote for Finland, would you vote to dismantle it and go back to the way we were, or keep it together?
First of all, about the nuclear weapons, we don't have those on the Finnish soil. And one of the reasons why we don't have it is because of our legislation. It doesn't allow it. Should we want to change it, we would need to change the legislation, but it's not in the pipeline at the moment. Other than we are planning on establishing a framework in which we could have smaller units for nuclear power in the future, what we call SMEs. Those are the not so heavily built constructions of nuclear power plants, but those that can be built much easier and which can only provide energy for a small town or something like that. So if we are to change our nuclear legislation, it would be related to that, but not to the nuclear weapons as such.
Would you vote for or against nuclear weapons on Finnish soil?
I would say that I would vote in favor of anything that would secure Finnish people's lives in Finland. And the other question was about the dismantling of European Union. I have always been a fan of the European Union, and primarily because it used to be a security alliance for Finland for a number of years before we joined NATO. It was not only about the values or the commercial and trade issues, but it was also for our security. We belong to a community of 27 different countries. But I think we now hear voices like from Hungary or Slovakia or some others who don't want to build into the consensus what we used to have, because usually all the decisions need to be taken by consensus. It means that we all have to agree on them. So instead of dismantling European Union, I think some of the rules and regulations will have to be changed so that in the most severe cases of security, for example, there will be a majority decision, so that we don't always have to find consensus on anything, so that we don't give way to people like Prime Minister Orbán from Hungary or any others who want to prevent us from doing the things that we have to do. But I don't believe in dismantling of the European Union. And other than that, there are countries that still want to join us. Like, for example, from the Western Balkans, there are Albania, Montenegro, and others, even Serbia, who want to join it, and now Georgia, and even Moldova. So it doesn't look like it's going to melt in the very near future, but it might change its figure. Yes.
I have a question in regards to excuse me. Hi, I'm Stephanie.
Hi, Stephanie.
In regards to watching the election here in the States, does Finland do anything different to reach my generation and younger than what you've observed here in the States, or us token millennials, the younger ones? What thoughts do you have on that?
Usually we recommend, in the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly, that there should be at least 30% of young and women as candidates. So that is our recommendation. But in the kind of elections which you have here in the States, where it's the first past the post type of thing, it's very difficult to apply that kind of principle. You would need to do it already in the primaries. So, but it is still our recommendation to use that kind of quota. Yes.
If it comes to it, would you vote in favor of accepting Ukraine into NATO? Would you be in favor of that if it comes to it in peace negotiations, and that's one of their demands? Taking into consideration that for the past 20 years, Ukraine has had a reputation of being very corrupt.
That is a very good question. I wouldn't accept Ukraine to NATO nor to the European Union before it meets the requirements. Mm-hmm. I don't think there needs to be any shortcut to Ukraine or anybody else. We have to be fair. The same rules apply to everyone.
Would you make the exception if peace could only be achieved by Ukraine saying you must let us into NATO so we don't have to fight another war again?
That might be in the future, but not in the foreseeable future. We need to finish this war first, because one of the rules that NATO has is not to accept countries that are at war. And I think we should stick to that. We can help them militarily, and we should, but that's another thing than accepting them as a member. Yes, one more.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. Nice to meet you. Bye.
What's your opinion about the Social Democratic Party sending 40 election assistants or poll workers to states? Isn't that interfering with the other countries' internal politics?
No.
What's your opinion about that?
Well, that is a good question because I think, first of all, it's a bit odd, but I know some of the social democrats who came here to the United States to do that, to knock on the doors and to talk about Kamala Harris's agenda, because many of them have never been to the United States. So it was the first time they ever traveled here. So in my opinion, the most important thing would be to educate social democrats about international politics at home first, and then to send them abroad. But while saying this, I also need to take into account that when we had the European elections in Europe in June, we had Ursula von der Leyen coming to Finland, and he spoke at some of the events we had for the National Coalition Party. So somehow it's comparable, but somehow not. So the leaders of political parties can come and speak to events, but I don't know, knocking at doors and did it really do good for Kamala Harris's campaign, or was it the opposite?
You saw the result.
Yes. If there are no more questions, I would like to thank you for letting me be here, and it was really a pleasure.
Thank you. Pia. Yeah. This is a book that is written by Sirpa Aho over there.
Okay.
And it's, you can read it.
Yes. Viirakoista Fintalta.
Yes.
From the jungles.
Yes. Okay, it's a pleasure to give this book to you, which tells like the history of Finns in Florida. It starts from late 1800 and it comes up to Second World War. Mm-hmm. There was brave Finns who came to in the middle of the channel to start as pioneers, to make their homestead there and to start farming and start to building, and they were amazing. So they deserve really that their story is told to future generations. So this is all about that, and it's all in Finnish language because all the source material was in Finnish language.
Good.
So I believe that you enjoy it.
I will. I will read it on the plane back home. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you, my pleasure.
Okay, thank you very much for coming. And as you can see, she is presidential material. And based on her age and compare it to the US candidates, she has many years to go.
Any plans for President Stubb to come and see us?
Yes.
Any timetable on that?
Not yet. We will have to work on that.
I invited President Stubb the first day he became the president in Finland.
I know you.
So it depends if he has time. But the invitation is there. It has been confirmed that he has the office, presidential office, has received it. But that's all I know for the time being. So we'll see.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can I make a quick announcement?
Yeah, of course.
I want to thank you for bringing the insight. We are so insular here in America. When you talk about Moldavia and different countries, we're like, oh, we just have the United States. So thank you for opening our eyes a little
You're
bit.
welcome.
For us, it is Veterans Day. And I just want to invite everyone that Mr. Faust is going to help us. Tonight at 5:30, we're meeting at the bandshell at Bryant Park. Bring a flashlight, and we're going to be gelling the flashlights red and blue. Then we're going to all walk up into the bridge and have the flashlights red, white, and blue, reflecting in the water and have it photographed. It's a very beautiful, quiet tribute to the veterans of this country, and you're all invited. 5:30 at the bandshell. We'd love to see you there. Luncheon.